The dead don't usually attend their own funerals. Dominic Varela was supposed to be scattered across the Atlantic, pieces of a private jet mixed with storm debris. His wife had already ordered the flowers. His best friend had already claimed his empire. But here's the thing about powerful men. They don't die easy, and they sure as hell don't forget. This is the story of a king who walked through his own graveyard, a maid with a loaded gun and a family debt, and the night everything burned down from the inside. Stay until the end. Like and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain hit the pavement like bullets. Dominic Varela stood outside the McLaren Hotel in downtown Chicago, rain drumming against his shoulders, and felt something twist in his gut. Not fear, he'd buried that years ago, but instinct. The kind that kept men like him alive when smarter people ended up dead. Inside that hotel, 15 men waited. Russian buyers with Bratva connections, ready to discuss territory splits worth $40 million. He should have been in there shaking hands, pouring vodka, playing the game. Instead, he was staring at the rain-slick street like it held answers. Boss? Marcus Ford stood beside him, collar turned up against the weather. Marcus had been with him for 8 years. Loyal, sharp, the kind of man you trusted with your life because he'd already saved it twice. We're going to be late. Dominic didn't move. Something's wrong. It's a hotel meeting. What could be wrong? I don't know. Dominic turned away from the entrance. Cancel it. Marcus blinked. Cancel $40 million? Reschedule tonight. Tell them I'm sick. Tell them whatever you want. Dominic was already walking toward the car, rain pouring harder now. I'm going home. Dom, these guys flew in from Moscow. You cancel on the Bratva. Then they'll be pissed. Dominic yanked open the door of the black Escalade. I'll deal with it tomorrow. He didn't wait for Marcus to argue. The door slammed shut, cutting off the storm. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror, a young guy, newer to the crew, nervous hands on the wheel. Home, Dominic said. Fast. The kid nodded and pulled into traffic. Dominic leaned back against leather that cost more than most people's cars and tried to shake the feeling crawling up his spine. He'd built an empire on gut instinct. Started as a collections enforcer in his 20s, worked his way through the ranks with blood and brains, took over the Varela operation when his uncle got sloppy. Now he controlled shipping routes from Vancouver to Miami, laundered money through half the legitimate businesses in 3 states, and had enough politicians in his pocket to rewrite laws. But success made you soft. Success made you think you were untouchable. His phone buzzed, a text from his wife, Elena. Thought you had a meeting tonight? He typed back. Finished early. On my way home. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Dominic frowned. Elena usually had something to say. Always did. They'd been married 6 years, a strategic move that turned into something almost real. She was smart, beautiful, came from old money that gave his operation legitimacy. Their marriage was built on mutual benefit, but somewhere along the way he'd started to think maybe it was more. Maybe he was an idiot. The Escalade cut through rain-soaked streets, past neighborhoods that shifted from downtown glass towers to estate properties with gates and long driveways. His house sat on 4 acres outside the city, a modern fortress of stone and steel, high walls, security that would make a prison jealous. As they approached the gate, Dominic noticed the guardhouse was dark. "Where's Tony?" he asked. The driver hesitated. "Maybe he's doing rounds?" "Tony doesn't do rounds during a storm." Dominic sat forward. "Stop the car." The Escalade rolled to a halt 20 feet from the gate. Rain hammered the roof. Dominic stared at the empty guardhouse, at the gate standing open, not broken, just open, like someone had left it that way on purpose. His hand moved to the gun tucked against his ribs. "Stay here," he told the driver. "Engine running." "Sir, you should do what I said." Dominic stepped out into the storm. Rain hit him like a slap, soaking through his suit in seconds. He moved toward the guardhouse, gun drawn, every nerve screaming that this was wrong. The door hung open. Inside, the monitors were dark. Tony's coffee sat half-finished on the desk, still warm. No blood, no struggle, just gone. Dominic's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone, dialed Marcus. "Yeah?" Marcus answered on the first ring. "Get to my house, now. Bring everyone. What's wrong? I don't know yet. Dominic ended the call and moved through the open gate, staying low, using the trees for cover. The house sat 200 yards up the driveway, lights burning in the windows like everything was normal. It wasn't normal. He circled wide, approaching from the east side where the landscaping was thickest. His security system should have lit him up by now. Motion sensors, cameras, the works. Nothing triggered. Either it was off or someone had killed it. Through the rain, he could see movement in the house, shadows crossing windows. Too many shadows. His household staff was 3 people: a cook, a cleaner, and Aria Hale, the quiet one. Hired 4 months ago through an agency Elena found. Mid-20s, dark hair, kept her head down and her mouth shut. He'd barely noticed her. Dominic reached the side entrance, a door that led into the mudroom. It was unlocked. He slipped inside, water dripping onto tile, and eased the door shut behind him. Voices drifted from deeper in the house. He couldn't make out words, but the tone was wrong, too relaxed, too comfortable. He moved through the mudroom into the hallway, gun raised, following the sound. The voices were coming from his study, the room where he kept his private files, his real books, the proof of everything illegal he'd ever done. The door was cracked open, light spilled into the hallway. He pressed against the wall and listened. Should have seen his face when the engine caught fire. A woman's voice, familiar. Like he finally realized he wasn't God. Laughter, male. Also familiar. Dominic's blood went cold. He trusted you, the woman continued. All these years, and he never suspected. That's because Dominic thinks loyalty is real. The man's voice was smooth, amused. He actually believed people loved him. More laughter. Dominic eased closer to the door, rain still dripping from his hair, his clothes. Through the crack, he could see into the study. Elena sat on the edge of his desk, legs crossed, holding a glass of whiskey. His whiskey, the 25-year Macallan he saved for special occasions. Across from her, standing near the fireplace, was Marcus Ford. Dominic stopped breathing. When do we announce it? Elena asked. Give it 3 days. Marcus swirled his own drink. Let the news cycle chew on the tragedy. Private jet goes down in a storm, beloved businessman lost at sea. Then you play the grieving widow. I step in to help manage his affairs, and by the time anyone asks questions, we've already moved everything. And the others? The crew thinks it was mechanical failure. The investigators will confirm it. I've got people in place. No one's going to look too hard at a dead man. Marcus smiled, especially one who doesn't have a body to examine. Elena lifted her glass. To new beginnings. They drank. Dominic felt something crack inside his chest, not his heart, that had been cold for years, but something deeper. Foundation. The belief that some things were solid. He'd trusted Marcus with everything, had stood beside him in firefights, had led him into the inner circle, had called him brother. And Elena. He'd given her his name, his home, his protection. They'd killed him, or tried to. The plane he was supposed to be on, the private jet he used for long trips, was somewhere in the Atlantic right now, scattered across the water. They'd sabotaged it, waited for him to board. When he'd canceled the trip last minute because of the gut feeling, they must have thought he'd get on eventually. But he hadn't. And now he was standing in his own house listening to his wife and his best friend celebrate his death. Dominic backed away from the door, mind racing. How many people were in on this? Who could he trust? The staff was probably compromised. Security definitely was. If Tony was gone, the others were too. He needed to leave. Now. He turned to head back the way he came and found himself staring down the barrel of a gun. Aria Hale stood in the hallway, rain wet like him, a Glock 19 pointed at his chest. Her face was pale, eyes wide, but her hands were steady. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then she lowered the gun slightly and pressed a finger to her lips. Silence. She gestured toward the back of the house with the gun, then started walking. Dominic hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to follow someone pointing a weapon at him, but the voices in the study were getting louder, and his options were limited. He followed her. They moved through the house like ghosts, Aria leading him through hallways he knew by heart, but somehow felt unfamiliar in the dark. She took him past the kitchen, through a storage room, to a door he'd always assumed was a closet. She opened it. Stairs led down into darkness. "Go," she whispered. "Why?" "Because if you stay here, you're dead." Her voice was tight, controlled. "And if I'm wrong about you, then I just wasted 4 months of my life." Footsteps echoed from the front of the house. Men's voices. Not Marcus. Others. Arya grabbed his arm and shoved him toward the stairs. "Move!" Dominic went down. The stairs were steep, narrow, carved from stone. Behind him, he heard Arya close the door and follow. The darkness swallowed them whole. At the bottom, she clicked on a small flashlight. The beam cut through blackness, revealing a tunnel, old construction, maybe original to the property, reinforced with timber supports that looked like they'd been there for decades. "What is this?" Dominic asked. "Emergency exit." Arya moved past him, flashlight bobbing. "Your grandfather had it built during Prohibition. Ran from the house to the old boathouse on the lake. Most people forgot about it." "How do you know about it?" She didn't answer, just kept walking. The tunnel smelled like earth and decay. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. Dominic followed Arya's light, gun still in his hand, mind churning through possibilities. She'd been in his house for 4 months, quiet, forgettable. The kind of person who blended into the background while your wife and your best friend planned your murder. "You're not just a maid," he said. "No." "Who are you?" Arya stopped walking, turned to face him. In the flashlight's glow, her features were sharp, ghostly. "My name is Arya Hale. 10 years ago, you killed my father." Dominic went still. "What?" "David Hale. He worked for you, low-level enforcer. He skimmed money from a collection, and you found out." Her voice was flat, reciting facts. "You shot him in the head and dumped his body in the river. I was 15. Memory flickered. A man with a gambling problem, shaking hands, begging for mercy. Dominic had given him a choice. Return the money or die. The man couldn't return it, so Dominic had made an example. "I remember," he said quietly. "Good." Arya turned away and started walking again. "I came here to kill you. Spent 2 years planning it. Got hired through your wife's agency. Learned the house. Learned your patterns. I was going to put a bullet in your head while you slept." "Why didn't you?" "Because 3 weeks ago I found out what your wife and Marcus were planning." Her voice echoed in the tunnel. "And I realized you didn't deserve a quick death. You deserve to know what betrayal feels like." Dominic followed her in silence. Overhead, faint sounds filtered through the earth. Footsteps, voices, the house coming alive with searchers. "They know I'm here," he said. "They know someone triggered the east side door sensor. They don't know it's you." Arya glanced back. "Your driver called it in when you didn't come back. Marcus sent men to check. By now they found the empty guardhouse and your car. They think you got suspicious and ran." "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been listening to them for weeks." She stopped at a junction where the tunnel split, took the left path. "They're not careful around the help. People like me are invisible." The tunnel began to slope upward. Dominic could smell fresh air now, mixed with rain and lake water. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. Arya didn't answer until they reached another set of stairs. These led up to a wooden door, old and swollen with moisture. She pushed it open and they emerged into the storm. The boathouse was a ruin. Half-collapsed roof, walls thick with moss, surrounded by trees that had grown wild over the years. Rain poured through the gaps, turning the dirt floor to mud. Beyond the sagging structure, the lake stretched out into darkness, wind-whipped and angry. Arya turned to face him. "I spent 10 years hating you, imagining what I'd do when I finally had the chance. But watching your wife laugh about your death, watching Marcus toast to stealing everything you built, I realized something." She paused. "You're a bastard, Dominic. You've done terrible things, but you're not a traitor. You killed my father because he broke the rules of your world. You didn't smile about it. You didn't celebrate. That doesn't bring him back. No, but it changes what justice looks like." She holstered her gun. "They want you dead so they can take everything. I want you alive so you can burn their world down." Thunder cracked overhead. Lightning lit the boathouse in white-silver flashes, illuminating Arya's face, young, hard, carved by loss into something dangerous. And then what? Dominic asked. After they're dead, after I've taken back what's mine, what happens to you? Arya smiled, and it was the saddest thing he'd ever seen. Then you and I settle our debt, but not tonight. A boat engine coughed to life somewhere past the trees. Headlights swept across the water, patrol boats from his own security team searching the shoreline. We need to move, Arya said. There's a rental car parked 2 miles north. Keys are under the mat. Get to the city, stay low, and wait for me to contact you. Where are you going? Back to the house. She was already moving toward the tree line. They can't know I helped you. If I disappear, they'll figure it out. They'll kill you. They'll try. She glanced back one last time. You wanted to know why I'm helping you. Because my father was weak, and weakness got him killed. But you're not weak, you're angry, and angry men burn the world. She disappeared into the rain. So burn it, Dominic. Burn it all. Then she was gone. Dominic stood in the ruined boathouse, soaked to the bone, his empire crumbling, everything he'd built revealed as a lie. His wife wanted him dead. His closest friend had betrayed him. His home was full of killers. And somewhere in the storm, the daughter of a man he'd murdered was walking back into danger to protect him. The patrol boat swept closer. Voices called out, distorted by wind and rain. Dominic ran. He moved through the trees, branches tearing at his clothes, mud sucking at his shoes. His lungs burned. His mind raced. 2 miles. North. A rental car. Behind him, the lights grew brighter. Someone shouted. A gunshot cracked. Warning shot or genuine attempt, he couldn't tell. He kept running. The forest gave way to a service road, cracked asphalt barely visible through the downpour. Dominic stumbled onto it and kept moving, following the road north, away from his house, away from everything he'd known. Minutes blurred together. His legs screamed. His heart hammered. This was what prey felt like. Hunted, desperate, reduced to instinct. He'd forgotten what it was like. Another gunshot, closer this time. They were tracking him, probably had dogs. His security team was trained for this. Ironically, he'd trained them. Ahead, through the rain, he saw it. A silver Honda Civic parked on the shoulder, unremarkable, forgettable. He ran to it, dropped to his knees, and felt under the mat. Keys. He grabbed them, hauled himself into the driver's seat, and started the engine. The car came to life with a wheeze. He threw it into gear and punched the gas. The Honda fishtailed on the wet road, then caught traction. Dominic drove north, headlights cutting through the storm, hands shaking on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, lights appeared. 2 vehicles. Maybe more. He drove faster. The Honda wasn't built for speed, but it was built for anonymity, and right now that mattered more. Dominic took back roads, avoided highways, kept moving through the darkness. His phone buzzed, Marcus calling. Dominic stared at the name on the screen, answered. Dom? Marcus's voice was tight with false concern. Where are you? Your driver said you disappeared. We've got people looking. I know what you did. Dominic's voice was cold, flat, silence. Then, what are you talking about? The plane, the sabotage, the celebration in my study. Dominic turned onto another road, tires screaming. Did you really think I'd get on that jet? Did you really think I was that stupid? More silence. When Marcus spoke again, the concern was gone. Where are you? Somewhere you'll never find me. Dom, listen. No, you listen. Dominic's hands tightened on the wheel. I trusted you. I gave you everything, and you sold me out for what? Money? Power? Her? It's not personal. It's always personal. Dominic laughed, and it was a broken sound. How long? How long have you been planning this? 2 years. Marcus's voice was almost gentle. Ever since you started going soft. Ever since you started thinking this was a real marriage, that Elena actually loved you. You were getting weak, Dom. Someone had to make the hard choices. Hard choices. Dominic repeated the words like they were poison. You mean betrayal? I mean survival. You built something incredible, but you stopped being willing to do what it takes to keep it. I'm just finishing what you couldn't. Dominic ended the call and threw the phone out the window, watched it shatter on the wet pavement. He drove through the night, rain hammering the car, his mind replaying everything. Every meeting with Marcus, every dinner with Elena, looking for signs he'd missed, finding them everywhere. The way Elena always asked about his schedule. The way Marcus always volunteered to handle security updates. The way they were never in the same room unless Dominic was there. He'd been blind. By the time the sun started to rise, weak and gray through storm clouds, Dominic was 50 miles from his house. He pulled into a rest stop, parked behind a truck, and sat in the silence. His clothes were still damp. His body ached. His gun pressed against his ribs, a reminder that he was still alive, still dangerous. His phone was gone, but he'd memorized the number Arya had given him. He used the payphone at the rest stop, feeding it quarters, and dialed. She answered on the third ring. "You made it." Barely. Dominic leaned against the phone booth. "Are you okay?" "I'm back at the house. They think I slept through everything. Elena's playing the worried wife. Marcus is organizing search parties." Arya's voice was steady. "They found your phone on the road. They think you're running scared." "I am running." "Good. Keep running. I'll feed you information as I get it. But Dominic," she paused, "they're not going to stop looking. Marcus has reach. He's already calling in favors, spreading word that you've gone rogue, that you stole money and ran. By tonight, half the underworld will be hunting you. Let them hunt." Dominic watched the sunrise through dirty glass. "I've been hunted before. Not like this. This time, you're alone." "No." Dominic closed his eyes. "This time, I know who my enemies are." He hung up and walked back to the Honda, climbed in, stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror, a man who'd built an empire and lost it in a single night. But empires could be rebuilt, and betrayal could be answered. Dominic started the car and drove into the gray morning, already planning his next move. They thought he was dead. They thought they'd won. They were wrong. The dead don't stay buried, and the king was coming home. The safe house smelled like mold and forgotten crimes. Dominic pushed open the door to the apartment, third floor, east side of a building that should have been condemned 20 years ago, and felt the weight of his fall. This place belonged to a life he thought he'd left behind, back when he was hungry and dangerous and stupid enough to think loyalty meant something. He locked the door behind him. 3 deadbolts, a chain that looked like it could stop a truck. The windows were covered with blackout curtains thick enough to muffle gunfire. He'd bought this place 15 years ago under a name that didn't exist anymore. Paid cash. Never told anyone. Not Marcus. Not Elena. Nobody. It was the only smart thing he'd done in a decade. The furniture was sparse, a couch with springs poking through, a table with cigarette burns, a kitchenette with a fridge that hummed like it was dying. Dominic dropped onto the couch and felt something inside him crack wider. He'd been running on adrenaline for 18 hours. Now, sitting in the silence, the reality hit him like a fist. Everything was gone. His house, his organization, his money, most of it anyway. Marcus would have locked down the accounts by now, moved assets, rewritten ownership papers. Elena would be playing the grieving widow, accepting condolences, probably wearing black like she gave a damn. Dominic pulled out his gun and set it on the table, stared at it. He could put a bullet in his own head right now, end it clean, deny them the satisfaction of hunting him down. But that would be weak. And Arya was right. He wasn't weak. He was angry. He stood up, paced the room. His mind was racing, sorting through the wreckage, looking for leverage. Marcus had contacts, but Dominic had built those contacts. Elena had money, but it was dirty money. And Dominic knew where all the bodies were buried, literally. The real question was, who could he trust? The answer came back fast and brutal. Nobody. His phone, the burner Arya had left in the glove box of the rental car, buzzed on the table. Unknown number. He picked it up. "Yeah. It's me." Arya's voice was low, careful. "Are you somewhere safe?" "Define safe." "Somewhere they won't find you in the next 12 hours. Dominic looked around the apartment. "Yeah." "Good, because they're tearing the city apart looking for you. Marcus put out word that you embezzled $30 million and disappeared. Half your crew thinks you screwed them over. The other half is too scared to ask questions." "What about the police?" "Marcus owns enough of them to keep this quiet. Official story is you're missing, possible boating accident during the storm. No body yet, but they're hopeful." She paused. Your funeral is in 3 days. Dominic laughed. It came out sharp and broken. Fast work. Elena wants to move quickly. Grief gets old if you drag it out too long. Arya's voice shifted. I'm sending you a file, pictures I took of documents in Marcus's office. Bank transfers, property deeds, emails. It's not everything, but it's enough to see how deep this goes. How deep? 2 years, like he said. Maybe longer. They've been siphoning money, setting up shell companies, buying loyalty. Half the people you thought were yours, they're his now. Dominic felt his jaw tighten. Send it. The phone buzzed. A notification, encrypted file transfer. He opened it and started scrolling. The first image was a bank statement. His account. Except the balance was wrong. 30 million short, like Arya said. Transfers made over the past 6 months, all authorized with his digital signature. Forged, obviously, but clean enough that nobody would question it. The next image was worse. An email chain between Marcus and someone named Vincent Kozlov, a Russian arms dealer Dominic had worked with twice, both times carefully, both times knowing Kozlov would sell out his own mother for the right price. The emails detailed a new partnership, Marcus offering access to shipping routes, warehouse space, distribution networks. Everything Dominic had built being handed over like a gift. Jesus, Dominic muttered. Keep scrolling, Arya said. He did. More emails. More transfers. Property deeds for houses he didn't know Marcus owned. A list of names, people in Dominic's crew with dollar amounts next to each one. Payments for loyalty. Or silence. Then he found the one that made his blood stop. An email from Elena to Marcus, dated 8 months ago. He's getting suspicious. We need to move faster. Marcus's response, let him suspect. By the time he figures it out, he'll be dead. Elena, and if he doesn't get on the plane? Marcus, then we make it look like an accident. Car crash. Home invasion. Doesn't matter. He's already a ghost. Dominic set the phone down, stared at the ceiling, counted his breaths because if he didn't, he was going to put his fist through the wall. You still there? Arya asked. Yeah. There's more. Marcus is meeting with your old contacts tomorrow night, claiming he's taking over operations in your memory. He's consolidating power fast. Where? The Gatsby Room, downtown, 8 o'clock. Bon, the Gatsby Room was a club Dominic owned, or used to own. High-end, exclusive, the kind of place where deals got made over whiskey that cost more than rent. If Marcus was meeting people there, he was making a statement. This is mine now. Who's going to be there? Dominic asked. Everyone who matters. Vincent Kozlov, the Dunn brothers, Angela Reyes. Maybe 15 people total. Arya hesitated. Dominic, if you're thinking about crashing that meeting, I'm not. He wasn't stupid. Walking into a room full of people who thought he was a thief would get him killed. But I need to know what they're saying. Can you get me audio? Maybe. The club has security cameras, but Marcus will have someone monitoring them. Then don't use the cameras. Plant a bug. Something small. You can do that, right? Silence. Then, yeah, I can do that. Good. Do it. And Arya, Dominic paused. Be careful. If they catch you, they won't. If they do, don't try to be a hero. Just run. I'm not the one who needs that advice. She hung up. Dominic sat in the silence, phone in his hand, mind working through possibilities. He needed information, needed to know who was solid and who'd sold out, needed to figure out how to take back what was his without getting a bullet in the head. Most of all, he needed leverage. He pulled up the photos again, scrolled through until he found the one that mattered, the email from Marcus to Kozlov. If Dominic could prove Marcus was selling out to the Russians, cutting deals without approval, half the organization would turn on him. Loyalty was currency in their world. Betrayal bought you nothing but a shallow grave. But proof meant nothing if nobody saw it. Dominic spent the next hour going through his old contacts, not the ones Marcus had bought, but the ones buried deeper. People who owed him favors. People who hated Marcus more than they feared him. People who might still believe in the old code. He made a list, 3 names. First, Tommy Chen, an accountant who'd worked for Dominic's uncle back in the day. handled the books when everything was still paper and handshake deals. Tommy had retired 5 years ago, moved to a cabin upstate, and swore he'd never touch dirty money again. But Tommy had also lost a son to a rival crew, a hit Marcus had ordered without asking, without justification. Tommy hadn't forgotten. Second, Sarah Voss. She ran guns through the Canadian border, moved products so clean even the feds couldn't track it. Sarah didn't like Marcus, thought he was reckless, too ambitious, too willing to burn bridges for short-term gain. She'd told Dominic that once, over drinks, back when Dominic still thought Marcus was loyal. Sarah didn't forget things either. Third, Father Raymond, not a priest. That was just what people called him because he'd been an altar boy once, before he started running illegal casinos and laundering money through churches. Father Raymond was old school. Believed in rules, believed that betrayal was worse than murder because murder you could justify. But betrayal was personal. Dominic picked up the burner phone, dialed Tommy Chen first. The phone rang 6 times. Dominic was about to hang up when a voice answered, rough, cautious. Yeah? Tommy, it's Dominic. Silence. Heavy breathing. Then, Dominic Varela is dead. Died in a plane crash 2 nights ago. So either you're a ghost or you're someone stupid enough to use a dead man's name. It's me, Tommy. Prove it. Dominic thought fast. Your son's name was Kevin. He died 3 years ago in a warehouse fire on the south side. Except it wasn't a fire. It was Marcus Ford setting an example because Kevin got caught skimming from a collection. You never said anything because you were scared, but you've been waiting for a chance to make him pay. Another silence, longer this time. Where are you? Tommy asked. Somewhere safe. They're saying you stole 30 million, saying you ran. They're lying. Can you prove it? Not yet, but I will. Dominic leaned forward. Tommy, I need your help. I need someone who can trace financial records, find out where Marcus is hiding the money he's been stealing. You're asking me to go against Marcus Ford. I'm asking you to help me bury the man who killed your son. Tommy didn't answer right away. Dominic could hear him breathing, thinking, weighing the risks. What's in it for me? Tommy finally asked. Revenge, and a cut of whatever I take back. How big a cut? Big enough. More silence. Then, send me what you have. I'll see what I can do. But Dominic, if this blows back on me, if Marcus finds out I helped you, he won't. You better not. Tommy hung up. Dominic sent the files. Then he dialed Sarah Voss. She answered on the first ring. I was wondering when you'd call. You knew? Honey, the whole city knows you're alive. Marcus is having a meltdown trying to find you. Half the crews think you're hiding in Mexico. The other half think you're already dead and someone's just playing games. Sarah's voice was smooth, amused. But me? I figured you were too stubborn to die easy. I need a favor. Of course you do. Nobody calls Sarah unless they need something. I need a place to meet, somewhere Marcus doesn't know about. When? Tonight, late. Give me a location. Dominic thought about it. He couldn't use any of his old spots. Marcus knew them all. He needed neutral ground. Somewhere public enough that nobody would start shooting, but private enough to talk. The old rail yard, he said. South End, midnight. Romantic, Sarah paused. What's this about, Dom? I'm taking back what's mine. From Marcus. That's suicide. Maybe. You coming or not? She laughed. Yeah, I'm coming. This I gotta see. He hung up and dialed the last number. Father Raymond. No answer. Dominic tried twice more, then gave up. Father Raymond was careful, didn't answer unknown numbers, didn't trust phones. If Dominic wanted to reach him, he'd have to do it in person. That was a problem for later. He stood up, stretched, felt his body complain. He hadn't slept in over a day, hadn't eaten since the meeting he'd walked out of. His clothes were still damp from the rain, sticking to his skin. He took a shower, cold water, no pressure, and changed into clothes he'd left here years ago. Jeans, a black shirt, a jacket with a torn pocket. They smelled like dust and old smoke. They fit like a memory. When he came out, his burner phone was buzzing again. Arya. I'm in the club, she said. Her voice was quiet, tight. Bugs in place. Audio's clean. But Dominic, there's something you need to know. What? Marcus isn't just consolidating power, he's selling it. The meeting tomorrow? It's not about taking over your operation. It's about auctioning it off, piece by piece, territory, routes, contacts, everything. He's already got buyers lined up. Dominic felt cold spread through his chest. He's dismantling it. Yeah, and once it's gone, there's nothing left to take back. Dominic closed his eyes, thought about the years he'd spent building that network, the blood, the compromises, the men he'd killed to protect it, all of it being carved up like meat at a butcher shop. How long do I have? He asked. 24 hours, maybe less. After tomorrow night, it's over. Then I guess I'm crashing a party. Dominic, you can't. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what's going to happen. His voice was hard, final. Send me everything you've got. Floor plans, security details, guest list. I want to know who's going to be in that room. And then what? You walk in and start shooting? No, I walk in and remind them who built this empire in the first place. Arya was quiet for a moment. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably, but I'm taking Marcus with me. She hung up without saying goodbye. Dominic spent the next 3 hours planning. He pulled up the files Arya had sent, blueprints of the Gatsby room, security camera placements, staff schedules. The club had 4 exits: main entrance, kitchen door, emergency stairwell, and a service elevator that led to the parking garage. Marcus would have men on all of them, but Marcus didn't know Dominic as well as he thought. The Gatsby room had a 5th exit, a maintenance tunnel that connected to the building next door. Dominic had used it once, years ago, to smuggle someone out during a raid. It was narrow, dirty, and probably hadn't been touched since. But it would get him inside. Getting out was another problem. He checked the guest list Arya had sent. 15 names. Some he recognized. Some he didn't. Vincent Kozlov was there, like she'd said. So were the Dunn brothers, enforcers who'd worked for Dominic's uncle before switching sides. Angela Reyes, who controlled most of the drug traffic through the southern ports. A few wildcards, buyers from out of state, opportunists looking for a piece of the action. And Elena. Of course Elena would be there, playing the widow, selling her dead husband's empire while pretending to grieve. Dominic stared at her name on the screen, felt something cold and sharp settle in his gut. He'd loved her once, or thought he had. Now he couldn't remember what that felt like. At 11:30, he left the safe house. Drove the Honda through empty streets, rain still falling, lighter now but steady. The city looked different at night, quieter, meaner, full of shadows that moved when you weren't looking. The rail yard was on the south side, past the warehouses and freight depots, a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. Dominic parked behind a stack of old shipping containers and waited. Sarah Voss showed up at midnight exactly. Her car, a black Audi, sleek and expensive, pulled up beside the Honda and stopped. She got out, lit a cigarette, and leaned against the hood. She was in her 40s, tall and sharp-edged, with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a leather jacket and boots that looked like they could kick through steel. "You look like hell," she said. "Thanks. I mean it. You look like you've been sleeping in a dumpster." "Close enough." Dominic got out of the Honda. "Thanks for coming." "Yeah, well, I didn't have anything better to do." She took a drag, exhaled smoke into the rain. "So what's the plan? You going to ask me to help you kill Marcus?" "No. I'm going to ask you to help me destroy him." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "There's a difference?" "Killing him is easy. Destroying him means taking everything he's got and making sure everyone knows he's a traitor." "And how do you plan to do that?" Dominic told her. About the meeting, about the auction, about the proof he had that Marcus was selling out to the Russians. Sarah listened without interrupting. When he finished, she flicked her cigarette into a puddle and watched it die. "That's a hell of a plan," she said. "Stupid, but hell of a plan. You in?" She smiled. "You know what I like about you, Dom? You don't waste time with bullshit. You just dive straight into the fire and hope you don't burn." She pushed off the Audi. "Yeah, I'm in, but if this goes sideways, I'm gone. I'm not dying for your revenge. Fair enough? And I want 20% of whatever you recover. 10, 15. Deal." They shook on it. Her grip was strong, calloused, a hand that had pulled triggers and counted money and built an empire out of nothing. You got a way into the club? She asked. Yeah. And you're sure Marcus won't see you coming? No, but I'm counting on it. Sarah laughed. You're crazy. Probably. She got back in her car. See you tomorrow night, Dom. Try not to die before then. She drove off, taillights disappearing into the rain. Dominic stood in the rail yard for a while longer, listening to the wind and the distant sound of trains. His phone buzzed. A text from Arya. Audio's live. I'll be listening. Don't do anything stupid. He almost laughed. Stupid was all he had left. He drove back to the safe house, climbed the stairs, locked the door, sat on the couch with his gun in his lap and waited for morning. Sleep didn't come. Instead, he replayed the last 6 years, looking for the moment it all went wrong, the moment he stopped being careful and started being comfortable. Maybe it was when he married Elena. Maybe it was when he promoted Marcus. Maybe it was when he started believing his own legend, that he was untouchable, that loyalty meant something, that power was forever. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe he'd just gotten old. By the time the sun came up, weak and gray through the curtains, Dominic had made peace with what was coming. Tomorrow night, he'd walk into that club. He'd face the people who'd betrayed him, and he'd either take back his empire or die trying. Either way, it ended. He stood up, checked his gun, loaded a fresh magazine, looked at himself in the mirror. Older, harder, a man carved out of mistakes and second chances. Let's see how this plays out, he said to his reflection. His reflection didn't answer, just stared back with cold eyes and a colder smile. Dominic Varela was going to war. And war, he remembered, was the only thing he'd ever been good at. The maintenance tunnel smelled like rats and rotting concrete. Dominic crouched in the darkness, water dripping somewhere ahead, his breathing the only sound that mattered. The tunnel entrance had been right where he remembered, behind a dumpster in the alley between 5th and 6th, hidden by 20 years of rust and graffiti. The lock had broken easy. Too easy. Nobody had been down here in forever. He checked his watch. 7:45. 15 minutes before Marcus's little auction started. 15 minutes before Dominic walked into a room full of people who either wanted him dead or thought he already was. His phone buzzed. Text from Arya. Everyone's here. Marcus is in the main room. Elena's with him. Security is tight. 8 men, maybe more. You sure about this? Dominic typed back. Too late to ask that now. Don't get killed. He pocketed the phone and kept moving. The tunnel sloped upward, narrow enough that his shoulders brushed both walls. Overhead, pipes dripped condensation that soaked through his jacket. His gun pressed against his spine. Loaded. Safety off. Ready. The tunnel ended at a metal grate. Beyond it, he could hear voices. Muffled. Distant. He pressed his eye to the grate and saw the basement of the Gatsby room, storage area, boxes stacked high, cases of expensive liquor waiting to be hauled upstairs. Empty. Dominic gripped the grate and pulled. It came loose with a screech that sounded like a scream in the silence. He froze, listening. The voices upstairs didn't change. Nobody had heard. He climbed through, replaced the grate, and moved to the stairs. Each step creaked under his weight. He took them slow, gun drawn, ears straining for any sound that meant he'd been made. At the top, a door. Unlocked. He eased it open and found himself in a service hallway, dimly lit, walls painted black, leading toward the kitchen on one side and the main club on the other. Voices grew louder. He could make out words now. 30% is insulting. I moved twice that volume through my network alone. Vincent Kozlov's accent was thick, Russian vowels grinding against English consonants. You want my cooperation, Marcus. You offer me something worth my time. Vincent, please. Marcus's voice was smooth, practiced. The voice of a man used to negotiating. We're all friends here. Let's not get greedy. Friends? A woman's laugh. Angela Reyes. Since when are we friends? You're selling a dead man's empire. We're here to pick the bones. More laughter. Uncomfortable. Hungry. Dominic moved closer. The hallway opened into a small alcove just off the main room, a spot where staff could watch the floor without being seen. He pressed himself against the wall and looked. The Gatsby room lived up to its name. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, leather booths arranged around a central bar that gleamed like polished obsidian. Art Deco touches everywhere. Gold trim, geometric patterns, mirrors that made the room look twice its size. 15 people sat around a long table in the center, Marcus at the head, wearing a suit that probably cost $5,000. Elena beside him, dressed in black, hair pulled back, playing the part perfectly. Kozlov across from them, flanked by two men who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. The Dunn brothers, Logan and Patrick, sat near the far end, identical scowls on identical faces. Angela Reyes leaned back in her chair, bored and dangerous. The others were scattered around the table, faces Dominic recognized, people he'd done business with, people who'd smiled at him a week ago and now sat ready to carve up his empire. Marcus stood, glass in hand. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for coming on such short notice. I know these are difficult circumstances. Difficult? Logan Dunn snorted. Dominic screwed us all and ran. Nothing difficult about that. Actually, Marcus paused for effect. Dominic didn't run. He's dead. The room went quiet. We found evidence, Marcus continued. The boat he took out during the storm? It washed up this morning. Empty. Coast Guard is calling it an accident. Between the embezzlement and the guilt, I think he decided to end it rather than face what he'd done. Elena dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Performance of the year. So he's really gone? Angela asked. He's gone. Marcus set down his glass. Which brings us to tonight. Dominic built something incredible. It would be a shame to let it fall apart. So I'm proposing we divide his assets fairly. Territory, roads, contacts. Everyone gets a piece. Everyone benefits. And you get to play kingmaker, Kozlov said. Very convenient. I get to keep the peace. Marcus smiled. Unless you'd prefer a war over scraps? Nobody answered that. Dominic watched from the shadows, jaw tight, hands steady. Everything Marcus said was poison wrapped in reason. The embezzlement story. The suicide. The idea that Dominic had been weak, that he'd crumbled under pressure. They were rewriting history, making him a coward, a thief, a cautionary tale. Let's get to business, Marcus said. He pulled out a folder, spread papers across the table. First item, the northern shipping routes. Currently valued at $8 million annually. I'm opening bids at $2 million. $2 million? Patrick Dunn leaned forward. Those routes are worth double that. Then bid higher. The auction started. Dominic listened as they picked apart his life's work. The shipping routes went to Kozlov for $3.5 million. The Southern Distribution Network went to Angela for $2.8. The Dunn brothers bought the protection rackets, the legitimate fronts, the shell companies, the real estate holdings that made everything look clean. Piece by piece, Marcus sold it all. Elena sat silent through most of it, occasionally whispering something to Marcus, playing the grieving widow who just wanted it over with. Dominic stared at her and felt nothing. Not anger, not hurt, just a cold recognition that he'd been married to a stranger. Last item, Marcus said. He held up a flash drive. Dominic's personal files, client lists, transaction histories, blackmail material on half the city, everything you'd need to control what's left of his organization. How much? Kozlov asked. This one's not for sale. Marcus pocketed the flash drive. This one's insurance, so nobody gets ambitious. Angela laughed. You mean so you stay in control? I mean so we all stay alive. Marcus looked around the table. Dominic kept these files as leverage. Now I have them. And as long as everyone plays nice, they stay buried. And if we don't play nice, Logan Dunn's voice was flat, dangerous. Then I release them, and we all go down together. Marcus smiled. But that won't happen, because we're all professionals. Dominic had heard enough. He stepped out of the alcove and into the main room. The conversation died. 15 faces turned toward him. Shock, confusion, fear. Marcus went pale. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Kozlov reached for his gun but stopped when Dominic raised his own. Evening, Dominic said. His voice echoed in the sudden silence. Hope I'm not interrupting. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. He walked toward the table, gun trained on Marcus. Funny thing about being dead, you get to hear what people really think of you. Dominic, Marcus found his voice, tried to smile. This isn't... We thought you were... dead. Yeah, I heard. Dominic stopped 10 feet from the table. Boat accident. Very tragic. Except I wasn't on a boat. I was standing in my own house listening to you and my wife celebrate my murder. Elena stood up. Dominic, please, let me explain. Sit down. She sat. Dominic looked around the room, at the people who'd worked with him, trusted him. Marcus told you I stole 30 million, that I ran, that I was weak. He pulled out his phone with his free hand, tapped the screen. Want to hear the truth? He hit play. Arya's recording filled the room, crystal clear. Marcus's voice. He trusted you all these years and he never suspected. Elena's laugh. He actually believed people loved him. Marcus again. Dominic thinks loyalty is real. The recording played for 30 seconds. Long enough. Dominic stopped it. The room was silent. That was 2 nights ago, Dominic said. In my study. While I was supposed to be on a plane, you sabotaged. While you were celebrating my death and planning how to steal everything I built. Marcus stood slowly. This is fabricated, edited. He's desperate. Shut up. Dominic's voice was cold, hard. I've got bank records showing you've been embezzling for 2 years. I've got emails between you and Kozlov setting up side deals. I've got proof of every lie you've told. He looked at the others. He's not dividing Dominic's empire. He's selling it to the highest bidder. And when he's done, you'll be working for him, or the Russians, or whoever pays the most. Kozlov stood. His guards moved with him. Is this true, Marcus? Of course not. He's lying. Show me the emails. Marcus hesitated. Just a second. Just long enough. Kozlov's expression went dark. You made a deal with me. Exclusive access to the northern routes. But I just heard you sell those same routes to Angela. That was a different... You played us, Angela said. She was standing too now. You brought us here to bid against each other, drive up the price, keep the profits. The Dunn brothers exchanged a look. Logan's hand drifted toward his jacket. Marcus raised his hands. Everyone calm down. We can work this out. No. Dominic took a step closer. We can't. Because you broke the only rule that matters. You betrayed your own. I saved this organization. Marcus's voice cracked. You were getting soft, Dominic, making mistakes, trusting the wrong people. Someone had to take control before you destroyed everything. So you tried to kill me. Yes! Marcus's composure shattered. Because you weren't strong enough anymore. You cared about her. He pointed at Elena. You actually thought this was a real marriage. You thought people followed you because they believed in you. But they didn't. They followed you because you were useful. And when you stopped being useful, you stopped mattering. Dominic absorbed that, let it sink in. And now? Now you're a ghost, a memory. And nobody cares about memories. Wrong. Dominic raised his phone again. See, while you were planning your little auction, I was making calls, reaching out to old friends, people who remember what loyalty means. The doors to the club burst open. Sarah Voss walked in first, flanked by 4 men with guns. Behind her, Tommy Chen, looking older and angrier than Dominic remembered. And behind him, Dominic almost smiled. Father Raymond, wearing his usual black suit and rosary, looking like he'd just come from a funeral. Marcus stared. What? Meet the old guard, Dominic said. People who know what you did. People who don't like traitors. Sarah walked to the table. Marcus Ford. You've been selling territory without approval, cutting deals with foreign interests, stealing from your own crew. She looked at Kozlov. Including lying to our Russian friends about exclusivity. Kozlov's jaw tightened. I do not appreciate being lied to. None of us do, Father Raymond said. His voice was soft, deadly, which is why we're taking a vote. Everyone who thinks Marcus should keep breathing, raise your hand. Nobody moved. Everyone who thinks he should face consequences? Every hand went up, even Elena's. Marcus looked at her. I'm a survivor, Elena said quietly. You're a liability. Dominic watched her. Still nothing. No anger, no pain, just recognition that she'd never been his and he'd never been hers. Marcus backed away from the table. You can't do this. I have the files. I have leverage. You have a flash drive, Tommy said. He held up an identical one, which I just copied, along with everything else you've been hiding. Bank accounts, shell companies, your real estate in the Caymans. Marcus's face went white. How? You underestimated a retired accountant. Big mistake. Logan Dunn stood. So what now? We kill him? No. Dominic lowered his gun. Killing him is too easy. He doesn't get to be a martyr. He gets to live with what he did. Then what? Angela asked. Dominic walked to Marcus, stood close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You wanted control? You've got it. You're going to stand in front of everyone who matters and admit what you did. Every lie, every betrayal. You're going to give back every dollar you stole. And then you're going to disappear. No territory, no crew, no protection. Just you and whatever's left of your reputation. That's a death sentence. Yeah, slow death. The kind you gave me. Dominic turned to the others. Anyone have a problem with that? Silence. Then Kozlov smiled. I think it is fair. Angela nodded. He wanted to play us against each other. Let him see what happens when we all agree. The Dunn brothers grunted approval. Marcus looked around the room, desperate, broken. Dominic, please, don't! Dominic's voice was ice. Don't beg. You made your choice. Now live with it. He turned to Elena. She sat perfectly still, tissue clutched in her hand, the performance finally over. And you? Dominic asked. What about me? You were part of this. You helped him. I was protecting myself. Elena's voice was steady, unapologetic. You built an empire on violence and lies. Did you really think I married you for love? I married you for security, for money, for a life better than the one I had. And when Marcus offered me a way to keep that life without you in it, I took it. Honest. Finally, what are you going to do? Kill me too? Dominic studied her, the woman he'd shared a bed with for 6 years. The woman who'd smiled at him over breakfast and planned his murder over dinner. No, he said. You get the same deal as Marcus. Exile. No money, no protection. Just whatever you can carry out the door. You can't. I can. And I am. He looked at Sarah. Make sure she's gone by morning. Sarah nodded. My pleasure. Elena started to say something else, but Sarah's men were already moving. They took her by the arms, not rough, but firm, and walked her toward the door. She didn't fight, just looked back once, eyes meeting Dominic's, and for a second he thought he saw something real there. Then she was gone. Marcus was still standing near the table, surrounded by people who wanted him dead. What about me? You leave tonight, Dominic said. Everything you own, everything you stole, it goes back where it belongs. Tommy's going to audit every account. Sarah's going to reclaim every territory. And Father Raymond's going to make sure everyone knows what you did. And if I refuse? Father Raymond stepped forward. Then we stop being civilized. Marcus looked at him, at the guns, at the faces around the table. He'd lost. Completely. Finally. Fine, he whispered. Good. Dominic turned to the others. The auction's over. Everything Marcus tried to sell? It stays in the family. We rebuild. Together. The way it should have been from the start. Kozlov tilted his head. And you expect us to just accept this? To follow you again after everything that's happened? No. I expect you to make a choice. Work with me under the old rules, honesty, loyalty, respect, or walk away and build your own operation. But if you stay, you play straight. No side deals. No betrayals. We're done with that. And if someone breaks the rules, Angela asked, then they end up like Marcus. The room went quiet. Dominic could see them thinking, calculating, weighing the risks. Finally, Kozlov laughed. You have balls, Varela. I respect that. He extended his hand. I am in. They shook. One by one, the others agreed. Angela, the Dunn brothers, everyone except a few wildcards who stood up and left without a word. Dominic let them go. He didn't need everyone, just the ones who understood. By 9:30, it was over. Marcus was gone, escorted out by Sarah's men, carrying nothing but the clothes on his back. Elena was gone too. The club was empty except for Dominic and his people. Father Raymond approached, rosary swinging from his hand. That was quite a show. It needed to be. You've made enemies tonight. I made enemies the day I took over this organization. Tonight, I just reminded them why they should be afraid. Father Raymond smiled. The old Dominic. Good. We missed him. Dominic walked to the bar, poured himself a drink, the same 25-year Macallan Elena had been drinking 2 nights ago. It tasted different now. Earned. His phone buzzed. Arya, you're alive. I'm impressed. He typed back. Where are you? Leaving. Elena tried to grab some jewelry on her way out. I stopped her. She hurt you? Please. I've been hurt by worse. Dominic smiled despite everything. Meet me at the safe house. We need to talk. About what? About what happens next. He ended the conversation and finished his drink. Around him, his people were talking, planning, strategizing, already moving forward. Tommy was on his laptop, tracking down Marcus's hidden accounts. Sarah was making calls, reclaiming territory. The Dunn brothers were drinking and laughing like old times. For a moment, Dominic let himself feel it. Not victory. That was too simple. But something close. Survival. Continuity. The empire hadn't fallen. It had bent. And now it was straightening, but there was still one piece missing. He walked outside. The rain had stopped. The city glittered under streetlights, alive and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Marcus was running. Elena, too. Both of them stripped of everything they'd tried to steal. Dominic pulled out his phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in years. A woman answered. Varela Investigations. It's Dominic. Pause. I heard you were dead. I got better. I need a favor. What kind? The kind that involves making sure 2 people never find their way home. The woman laughed. You want them watched? Tracked? I want them reminded every day that they're alive because I let them live, and that can change. Consider it done. He hung up, stood in the street, breathed. His phone buzzed again. Different number this time, unknown caller. He answered. Yeah? Heavy breathing, then Marcus's voice, broken and desperate. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself. I could have made this organization great, bigger than you ever imagined, but you were too small, too scared, and you were too greedy, too stupid to know when enough was enough. This isn't over, Dominic. Yes, it is. Dominic's voice was final. You're done. Finished. And if I ever see you again, I won't be merciful. He ended the call. Blocked the number. 30 minutes later, he was back at the safe house. Arya was waiting inside, sitting on the couch, gun on the table in front of her. You look terrible, she said. Thanks. I mean it. You look like you just fought a war. I did. Dominic sat down across from her. And I won. Did you? Arya studied him. Marcus is gone. Elena's gone. You've got your empire back, but what did it cost? Everything I thought was real. She nodded. So now what? Now I rebuild. Better this time, smarter. With who? The same people who would have carved you up if you hadn't walked in tonight. With people who understand the rules, who know what happens when you break them. Arya picked up her gun, checked the magazine, set it back down. And me? What about you? I'm the daughter of a man you killed. I helped you because it suited me, because I wanted to see them burn, but we still have unfinished business. Dominic looked at her, really looked. She was young, but she'd lived hard, eyes that had seen too much, hands that knew how to pull a trigger. You came here for revenge, he said. Yeah. You still want it? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. I spent 10 years hating you, imagining what I'd do. But now that I've seen you, really seen you, I don't know if you're the monster I thought you were, or if you're just a man who made hard choices in a hard world. Does it matter? Maybe. She leaned back. My father was weak. You said it yourself. He stole. He broke the rules. In your world, that's a death sentence. I've known that for years, but knowing it and accepting it are different things. So what do you want from me? Arya met his eyes. I want to know if you regret it. Dominic thought about that, about David Hale, about the man begging for his life, about the choice Dominic had made, quick, clean, necessary. No, he said honestly. I don't regret it. It was business. He knew the risks. And if someone killed you for business, would that be fair? Yeah, it would. Arya nodded slowly. At least you're honest. It's all I've got left. She stood, picked up her gun, looked at it, then at him. For a second, Dominic thought she might use it. Instead, she set it down. I'm done. With revenge, with hate, with all of it. You took my father, but you also saved my life. I guess that makes us even. You sure? No, but I'm trying to be. Dominic stood too. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Leave, probably. Find somewhere quiet. Somewhere people don't kill each other over money. Good luck with that. She smiled, sad, real. Yeah. She walked to the door, stopped, looked back. For what it's worth, you're a better man than Marcus, or Elena, or any of them. You're still a bastard, but at least you own it. Thanks, I think. And Dominic? Yeah? Don't trust anyone, ever again, because the next betrayal won't come from outside. It'll come from the person sitting next to you. Then she was gone. Dominic stood in the empty safe house, alone with the silence and the weight of what he'd done. He'd taken back his empire, destroyed his enemies, survived. But survival wasn't victory. It was just another day in a war that never ended. He walked to the window, looked out at the city, his city, built on blood and lies and compromises that kept him awake at night. Tomorrow, he'd start rebuilding. Tomorrow, he'd make new rules, new alliances, new plans. But tonight, he just stood there, a king without a kingdom, a man without a home, alive, but not whole. And somewhere in the rain-soaked streets below, the world kept turning, indifferent, ruthless, waiting for the next person to rise and fall. Dominic closed his eyes and let himself feel it all. The pain, the loss, the cold recognition that he'd won nothing except the right to keep fighting. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. Dominic woke on the couch with his gun digging into his ribs and sunlight cutting through the gaps in the curtains like knives. His body ached, every muscle, every joint, the kind of pain that came from 3 days of running on nothing but adrenaline and spite. He sat up, checked his phone. 43 missed calls. Most from numbers he didn't recognize. A few from people he did. One voicemail from Father Raymond. The funeral's at 11, Street, Michael's. You should probably show up. Nothing says resurrection like walking into your own memorial service. Dominic almost smiled. Almost. He stood, stretched, felt something pop in his back. The safe house looked worse in daylight, water stains on the ceiling, cracks in the walls, the kind of place that reminded you what rock bottom looked like. He'd climbed out of worse. He'd climb out of this too. His phone rang. Tommy Chen. Yeah, Dominic answered. We've got a problem. Tommy's voice was tight, anxious. I've been going through Marcus's accounts like you asked. He moved more money than we thought. A lot more. How much? 63 million, give or take. Dominic went still. 63. He's been siphoning funds for 3 years, not 2. Small amounts at first, then bigger chunks once he knew you weren't paying attention. Most of it's parked in offshore accounts, Caymans, Switzerland, a few shells in Panama that are going to take weeks to untangle. Can you get it back? Some of it, maybe half. The rest is buried so deep it might as well be gone. Tommy paused. There's something else. He didn't work alone. Someone helped him set this up. Someone with serious financial skills. And I don't think it was Elena. Who? I don't know yet. But whoever it is, they covered their tracks. Used proxy servers, encrypted transfers, the works. This wasn't amateur hour. Dominic rubbed his face. Keep digging. I want to know who helped him. And I want every dollar back that we can recover. I'm on it, but Dom... Tommy hesitated. What if the person who helped Marcus is still inside? What if they're sitting at one of your tables right now, smiling and waiting for another shot? Then I'll deal with them when we find them. And if we don't find them before they make a move, then I'll be ready. He hung up and stared at the phone. 63 million. 3 years. Someone had been helping Marcus from the beginning, setting up infrastructure, moving money, making sure every piece was in place before they pulled the trigger, which meant the betrayal went deeper than he'd thought. Dominic grabbed his jacket, checked his gun, left the safe house and drove toward St. Michael's Cathedral, a stone monstrosity on the west side, all Gothic arches and stained glass, the kind of place where old money went to pretend they were holy. It was also where his funeral was being held. Traffic was light. The city looked normal, people going to work, living their lives, unaware that a dead man was driving past them. Dominic felt disconnected from it all, like he was watching from behind glass. He parked 3 blocks from the cathedral and walked the rest of the way. The building loomed ahead, bells tolling slow and mournful. A crowd had gathered outside. Black suits, dark dresses, faces he recognized from 100 meetings and deals. They thought they were mourning. They had no idea. Dominic stayed on the opposite side of the street, collar turned up, hat pulled low. He looked like any other pedestrian. Nobody noticed him. That was the thing about being dead. People stopped looking for you. Through the cathedral doors, he could see the interior, rows of pews filled with bodies, candles burning, flowers stacked near the altar. And at the front, a closed casket. Empty, obviously. But it sold the lie. Elena stood near the casket, dressed in black, tissue in hand, playing her part to perfection. A few people approached to offer condolences. She accepted with grace, with just enough tears to be believable. Marcus was there too. Not front row. He was smarter than that, but close enough to matter. He looked haggard, broken, like he'd spent the night running and realized there was nowhere left to go. Dominic watched them both and felt nothing. They were ghosts to him now, irrelevant. He turned away and walked toward a small coffee shop across the street, ordered black coffee, sat by the window where he could see the cathedral entrance. His phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Voss. "You coming to this circus?" He typed back. "Already here? Where?" "Watching. Smart. Half the people inside want you dead. The other half want to make sure you stay dead." "What about you?" "I'm in the second half. You're worth more alive." Dominic sipped his coffee. Bitter. Cheap. Perfect. Across the street, more people filed into the cathedral. He recognized most of them. Captains from his organization, business partners, a few politicians he'd bought over the years. They all wore the same expression, solemn, respectful, completely fake. Nobody here cared that he was dead. They cared what his death meant for them. At 10:55, a black car pulled up. Sleek, expensive. The door opened and a man stepped out. Late 50s, gray hair, tailored suit that screamed old money. Richard Calloway. Dominic's grip tightened on his coffee cup. Calloway was a lawyer. High-end. The kind who represented billionaires and senators and people who didn't want their names in the paper. Dominic had used him once, years ago, for a real estate deal that needed discretion. But Calloway wasn't here as a mourner. He was here as a player. The lawyer walked into the cathedral with the confidence of someone who owned the room. Dominic watched through the window as Calloway made his way toward Marcus. They shook hands, exchanged words. Too familiar, too comfortable. Dominic pulled out his phone, called Tommy. "Tell me about Richard Calloway." Tommy didn't ask why. "Corporate lawyer, handles mergers, acquisitions, offshore finance, clean reputation, no criminal ties that I know of." "Dig deeper. I want to know every client he's represented in the last 5 years, every account he's touched, every deal he's brokered." "You think he's connected to Marcus?" "I know he is. I just need proof." "I'll get on it." Dominic ended the call and kept watching. Inside the cathedral, the service was starting. A priest stood at the altar. Father Michaels, not Father Raymond, which meant this was all for show. Father Michaels did weddings and funerals for people who wanted religion without the complications. He spoke about Dominic like he'd known him. Talked about family, legacy, a life well lived. It was all lies. Dominic finished his coffee and left the shop. Walked around to the back of the cathedral where a service entrance led into the lower level. The door was unlocked, sloppy security, but this was a church, not a fortress. He slipped inside. The basement was dim and quiet. Stone walls, low ceilings, a hallway that led to storage rooms and the boiler. At the far end, stairs going up to the main floor. Dominic climbed slowly, each step deliberate. At the top, a door opened into a small alcove behind the altar, a space where priests prepared before services. Through the gap, he could see the congregation, hundreds of people, all facing forward, all waiting to say goodbye to a man who wasn't dead. The priest finished his eulogy, stepped aside. Marcus stood and walked to the podium. The room went silent. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began. His voice was steady, controlled. Dominic Varela was many things: a leader, a visionary, a friend. He paused, let the word hang. But he was also human, and humans make mistakes. Dominic leaned against the wall, listened. In the end, those mistakes caught up with him, Marcus continued. The pressure, the guilt, the weight of trying to hold everything together. He couldn't carry it anymore, and rather than face the consequences, he chose to run. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I know that's hard to hear," Marcus said. "We want our heroes to be perfect." But Dominic wasn't perfect. He was flawed. He hurt people. He made enemies. And in the end, those flaws destroyed him. Elena stood, walked to the podium, took Marcus's hand. Together, they faced the crowd. "We're here to remember the good," Elena said softly, "to honor what he built, and to make sure his legacy doesn't die with him." Applause, quiet, respectful. Dominic felt his jaw tighten. They were turning his funeral into a coronation, positioning themselves as the rightful heirs, the ones who'd carry forward what he'd started. He'd seen enough. He pushed open the door and stepped out from behind the altar. The applause died. Heads turned. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. Marcus froze. Elena went pale. The crowd erupted, people standing, pointing, shouting questions that blurred together into noise. Dominic walked down the center aisle, slow, calm, like he owned the place, because he did. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice cut through the chaos. Traffic was hell. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. He stopped in front of the casket, looked at it, then at Marcus and Elena standing frozen at the podium. "Nice speech," Dominic said. "Really touching, especially the part about me being flawed. You're right, I am. I trusted you. That was pretty stupid." "Dominic," Marcus started. "Save it." Dominic turned to face the crowd. "I know what you're all thinking. Is he real? Is this some kind of trick? Let me clear that up. I'm real. I'm alive. And I'm taking back what's mine." Richard Calloway stood in the third row. "This is highly irregular." "Irregular?" Dominic laughed. "You helped Marcus steal $63 million from my organization, and you're worried about irregular?" Calloway's face went blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Dominic pulled out his phone, held it up. "See, while you were all getting ready for my funeral, my people were going through financial records, tracking transfers, following the money. And guess whose name keeps showing up? Yours." The room went silent. "You set up the offshore accounts," Dominic continued. "You structured the shell companies. You made sure every dollar Marcus stole was hidden so deep nobody could find it. You thought you were safe because nobody would look at a respectable lawyer. But I looked, and I found you." Calloway didn't answer, just turned and started walking toward the exit. "Stop him," Dominic said. Sarah Voss appeared at the door. With her were Logan and Patrick Dunn, guns visible under their jackets. Calloway stopped, turned back. "You can't prove anything," the lawyer said. "Actually, I can." Tommy Chen stood up from the back row, held up a laptop. "Digital trail. Every transaction, every account, every email between you and Marcus planning this. It's all here." Calloway's composure cracked. "You have no authority." I have all the authority I need." Dominic stepped closer. "You helped steal from me. You helped Marcus and Elena plan my murder, and now you're going to give it all back. Every dollar, every asset, everything. And if I refuse, then we stop being civilized." Father Raymond appeared near the front pew, rosary in hand, smile on his face. "The man asked a question, Richard. You should answer." Calloway looked around. At the guns, at the faces, at the crowd that had gone from mourners to witnesses. "Fine," he whispered. "I'll return the money." "No." Dominic shook his head. "You'll return the money, confess your crimes, and turn yourself in to the authorities. Publicly, on record. So everyone knows exactly what you did. That'll destroy my career to... Good. You destroyed mine. Fair trade. Calloway opened his mouth, closed it. The fight drained out of him. When? Now. Sarah pulled out her phone. I've got a contact at the FBI. He's been wanting to bring down some dirty lawyers for years. This should make his day. She made the call. Within 5 minutes, sirens echoed outside. Federal agents walked into the cathedral, 3 of them, badges out, expressions grim. Richard Calloway, the lead agent said. Calloway nodded. You're under arrest for money laundering, conspiracy, and fraud. They cuffed him, read him his rights, walked him out through the same doors he'd entered an hour ago, confident and clean. Now he was just another criminal. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Dominic turned to Marcus and Elena. They stood together near the casket, holding each other like shipwrecked survivors. Your turn, Dominic said. We didn't, Elena started. Don't. Dominic's voice was ice. I told you last night. You're done. Both of you. I gave you a chance to leave quietly. You should have taken it. What are you going to do? Marcus asked. Kill us in front of everyone? No, I'm going to let them do it. Dominic gestured to the crowd. See, the thing about a betrayal is that it doesn't just hurt the person you betray. It hurts everyone. Every person here trusted you, believed in you, and you sold them out for money. He raised his voice, addressed the room. Marcus Ford and Elena Varela conspired to kill me. They sabotaged my plane. They stole $63 million. They planned to auction off everything I built and split the profits. And they did it with help from Richard Calloway, who's now in federal custody. Murmurs grew louder, angry, dangerous. I could kill them myself, Dominic continued, but that wouldn't be justice. Justice is letting them face the people they betrayed. So here's the deal. They leave. Now. With nothing. No money, no protection, no allies. And if anyone here sees them again, in this city, in this state, anywhere near what we've built, you have my permission to do whatever you think is fair. The crowd shifted. Eyes locked on Marcus and Elena with a hunger that made them step back. You're insane, Marcus said. No, I'm fair. You wanted my empire. You wanted my life. Now you get to live without either. That's more than you gave me. Sarah and the Dunn brothers moved forward, surrounded Marcus and Elena, escorted them toward the exit. The crowd parted, silent, watching. As they reached the door, Elena looked back, met Dominic's eyes one last time. I never loved you, she said. I know. Then why? Because I wanted to, and that was my mistake, not yours. She turned away, walked out. Marcus followed. The doors closed behind them. The cathedral exhaled, a collective breath, relief, shock. Something close to awe. Dominic stood at the front, alone near the empty casket. He looked at it, at the flowers, at the candles burning for a man who wasn't dead. Show's over, he said. Everyone go home. Slowly people started to leave. Some stopped to shake his hand. Others just stared. A few, the ones who'd been ready to carve up his empire, left quickly, heads down, avoiding eye contact. Within 20 minutes, the cathedral was empty except for Dominic, Sarah, Tommy, Father Raymond, and the Dunn brothers. Hell of a resurrection, Logan said. Yeah. Dominic sat on the edge of the altar, suddenly exhausted. Hell of a resurrection. Sarah lit a cigarette, took a drag. So what now? You've got your empire back. You've destroyed your enemies. You're alive. What's the next move? Dominic didn't answer right away. He looked around the cathedral, at the stained glass, the vaulted ceilings, the crosses hanging everywhere, symbols of redemption, of second chances. He wasn't sure he believed in either. Now we rebuild, he finally said. Different this time. Better. How? Tommy asked. By changing the rules. No more blind loyalty. No more trusting people just because they've been around forever. Everyone earns their place. Every day. And if they betray that trust, they're gone. Father Raymond nodded. Harsh, but fair. Harsh keeps you alive. Dominic stood. Tommy, I want you to audit every account, every person on the payroll, anyone who worked with Marcus, anyone who took money from Calloway, anyone who even thought about selling me out. I want their names. That's going to be a long list. Then make it. And when you're done, we cut the dead weight. What about the money? Sarah asked. How much can we recover? Tommy says maybe half. 30 million, give or take. The rest is gone. That's a big hole. We'll fill it. We've got territory. We've got contacts. We've got leverage. Dominic pulled out his phone, checked the time. I'm calling a meeting. Tonight. 8 o'clock. Gatsby Room. Everyone who matters. We lay out the new structure. New rules. New leadership. Leadership? Patrick Dunn frowned. You mean you're not? I'm still in charge, but I'm not doing it alone. Dominic looked at Sarah. You're second. Territory and operations. She raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? You've earned it. You didn't stab me in the back when you had the chance. That's worth something. What about us? Logan asked. Your enforcement. Clean up the mess. Make sure everyone understands the new rules. And me? Tommy said. You're the accountant. You track every dollar. You find anyone trying to steal, you tell me. Tommy nodded. Fair enough. Father Raymond smiled. And what's my role in this new empire? You're the conscience. You keep me honest. You remind me when I'm going too far. That's a full-time job. Yeah, it is. They spent the next hour planning, dividing responsibilities, figuring out how to move forward without the foundation they'd built over years. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. By the time they finished, the sun was setting. Golden light filtered through the stained glass, painting the cathedral in shades of red and gold. Dominic walked outside. The street was empty now. The crowd had dispersed. The city moved on, indifferent to his resurrection. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Yeah, it's Arya. He hadn't expected to hear from her again. Where are you? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. She paused. I heard about the funeral. Sounds like it was eventful. You could say that. Marcus and Elena are gone? Yeah. And Calloway? Federal custody. Good. Silence. Then, I saw the news about the charges, about the confessions. You did it. You burned their world down. I did what I had to do. Yeah, you did. Arya's voice softened. I just wanted to say thank you for not killing them. I know you wanted to. I wanted to, but it wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe not, but it would have felt good. For about 5 seconds. She laughed, quiet, real. I guess that's why you're still alive. You think past the 5 seconds. Sometimes. Dominic, she hesitated. I'm leaving. For real this time. I'm getting out. Away from all this. I just wanted you to know. Where are you going? Does it matter? No, I guess it doesn't. Will you be okay? Dominic looked at the cathedral, at the city beyond it, at the empire he'd taken back and the cost it had demanded. Yeah, he said, I'll be okay. Good, because you deserve that. Not happiness, not peace, but okay, that's something. Arya, yeah? Thank you for saving my life, for giving me a chance. We're even now. Your father, my revenge, all settled. Are we? She didn't answer for a long time. Yeah, we are. The line went dead. Dominic stood on the cathedral steps and let her go. Another ghost, another piece of his past drifting into the distance. He walked to his car, drove through the city as night fell. The streets glittered with lights, neon signs, headlights, windows burning bright in buildings that touched the sky. Somewhere in all that light, people were living normal lives. Working, loving, dying without drama. Dominic envied them. A little. At 7:30, he arrived at the Gatsby Room. The club was empty, quiet, waiting to be filled. He walked to the bar, poured himself a drink, sat down and waited. One by one, they arrived. Sarah first, then the Dunn brothers, Tommy, Father Raymond, Angela Reyes, Vincent Kozlov. Others, people who'd been at the funeral, people who'd watched him rise from the dead, people who understood that the old empire was gone and something new was being built. By 8 o'clock, the room was full. Dominic stood, raised his glass. Thank you for coming. I know the last few days have been chaos. I know some of you weren't sure if I was really alive or if this was all some elaborate trick. So let me be clear. I'm alive. I'm in charge. And we're moving forward. Silence. Everyone listening. The old way is dead, Dominic continued. Blind loyalty, secret deals, betrayal hidden behind smiles. That's over. From now on, we operate with transparency. Everyone knows where the money goes. Everyone earns their place. And if you betray the organization, you're done. No second chances, no mercy. What about mistakes? Angela asked. Mistakes are different. Mistakes get fixed. Betrayal gets punished. Kozlov nodded. And who decides what is mistake and what is betrayal? We all do, together. That's the new rule. Decisions get made by consensus, not by one person hiding in the dark. Even you? Angela challenged. Especially me. The room shifted, uncertain, intrigued. I'm not asking you to trust me, Dominic said. I'm asking you to trust the system. We hold each other accountable. We build something that doesn't fall apart the second someone gets greedy. And if someone breaks the rules, Logan Dunn asked, then we vote. Majority decides the punishment. Father Raymond stood. I'll second that. Democracy in the underworld. It's poetic. A few people laughed, nervous, but the tension eased. One by one, they agreed. Some reluctantly, some eagerly, but they agreed. By midnight, the foundation was set. New structure, new rules, new empire built on the ashes of the old one. Dominic walked out of the Gatsby room feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not much, just a flicker, but it was there. He drove back to the safe house, climbed the stairs, locked the door, sat on the couch with his gun on the table and let himself breathe. He'd survived. He'd won. He'd built something that might actually last, or it might collapse in 6 months. Either way, he was still here, still fighting, still alive. And that was enough. 3 weeks later, Dominic got the call he'd been waiting for. We found him, Sarah said. No greeting, just facts. Marcus is in Atlantic City, cheap motel off the boardwalk. He's been gambling, lost most of what he managed to take with him. Dominic stood at the window of his new office. Not the mansion, he'd sold that, but a penthouse downtown with bulletproof glass and a view of the entire city. How'd he look? Like hell, hasn't shaved, drinking hard, the kind of desperate that makes people sloppy. Anyone with him? No. Elena's gone. Word is she left him 2 weeks ago. Took what money was left and disappeared. Smart girl. She always was. Dominic turned from the window. What about our friends? Anyone making moves on him? Vincent sent someone to watch. The Dunn brothers wanted permission to finish him. I told them to wait for your call. Good. Let him sit. Let him know we're watching, that we could end it any time we want. Sarah was quiet for a moment. You're not going to kill him. No? Why not? He tried to kill you. He stole from you. He deserves worse than a bullet. Because a bullet is mercy, and I'm done being merciful to people who don't deserve it. Dominic sat down at his desk. Marcus gets to live knowing he had everything and threw it away. That's punishment enough. And if he comes back, if he tries something, then we'll deal with it. But he won't. He's broken. You said it yourself. He's drinking, gambling, burning whatever's left. That's not a man planning revenge. That's a man waiting to die. Sarah sighed. You're probably right. I'll keep someone on him just in case. Do that. And Sarah? Yeah? Thank you for everything. Don't get soft on me, Dom. I'm doing this because it pays well. Sure you are. She hung up. Dominic set the phone down and looked around his office. Clean lines, minimal furniture. Nothing like the mansion with its history and ghosts. This place was new. A fresh start. The past 3 weeks had been brutal. Tommy had finished the audit. 47 people had been working with Marcus in some capacity. Some knowingly, some just following orders. Dominic had cut them all loose. No violence. No threats. Just gone. Out of the organization, out of the city if they were smart. The money recovery was ongoing. Tommy had pulled back $32 million so far, with another $8 million tied up in legal battles that would take months to resolve. The rest was gone. Burned. Lost to offshore accounts that would never surface. But they were rebuilding, slowly, carefully. The new structure was working better than Dominic had expected. The council system, where major decisions required consensus from Sarah, Tommy, Father Raymond, and the other senior members, had prevented 3 potentially disastrous moves in the past 2 weeks alone. Turns out when you had to justify your choices to people who'd call you out, you made better choices. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "I'm outside. Can we talk?" Dominic frowned, walked to the window, looked down at street level. Arya stood on the sidewalk, hands in her pockets, looking up. He texted back. "Thought you left." "I did. I came back." "Why?" "Because we're not done." Dominic stared at the message, then at her. She was still there, still waiting. He typed, "Come up." 5 minutes later, she was standing in his office. She looked different, lighter somehow, like she'd put down weight she'd been carrying too long. Her hair was shorter, her eyes were clearer. "Nice place," she said, looking around. "It's temporary. Everything's temporary." She walked to the window, looked out at the city. "I went to California, spent 2 weeks on a beach, tried to figure out what comes next. And I realized I don't know how to do normal. I tried, sat in coffee shops, read books, watched sunsets, but all I could think about was this place, this world, the mess we left." Dominic leaned against his desk. "So you came back?" "Yeah." She turned to face him. "I came back because I have a proposal." "I'm listening." "You need someone you can trust, someone who doesn't have ties to the old organization, someone who sees things clearly because they're not invested in the way things used to be." "And that's you?" "Yeah, that's me." Arya crossed her arms. "I spent 4 months inside your operation. I know how it works. I know where the weaknesses are, and I know you're trying to build something different, something better. What are you asking for?" "A job, a real one. Not as a maid, not as a spy, as part of the new structure. I can run security, vet people, make sure the next Marcus doesn't get close enough to do damage." Dominic studied her. "You're the daughter of a man I killed. You spent 10 years planning revenge, and now you want to work for me?" "No, I want to work with you. There's a difference." She didn't blink, didn't look away. "You were right. My father was weak. He made choices. He paid for them. I've made peace with that. But what I can't make peace with is walking away when I could actually do something useful. You're building something that might actually last. I want to be part of that. And if I say no, then I walk away. For real this time. And you lose someone who's already proven they'll save your life when it matters." Dominic thought about it, about trust, about the risk of letting in someone who had every reason to hate him, about the fact that she'd already had a dozen chances to kill him and hadn't. "Okay," he said. Arya blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah, you're in, but you start at the bottom. You prove yourself. You earn trust the same way everyone else does." "Fair. And if you betray me, I won't." Her voice was steel. "I've already lost one father. I'm not interested in becoming what killed him." They shook on it. Her grip was firm, honest. "When do I start?" she asked. "Now. There's a meeting in an hour. Supply chain review. Sarah's running it. Sit in, watch, learn." "That's it?" "That's it. Welcome to the Empire." Arya almost smiled. "The new Empire." "Yeah, the new one." She left. Dominic watched her go and felt something shift. Not trust, not yet, but possibility. The idea that maybe you could build something solid out of broken pieces. The meeting, an hour later, was everything a criminal organization shouldn't be. Organized, professional, transparent. Sarah laid out the supply chain issues. 3 routes were compromised. 2 suppliers were late on deliveries. 1 warehouse had been flagged by local authorities and needed to be shut down. "Recommendations?" Sarah asked. Angela Reyes spoke first. "We moved the warehouse operations to the south side. I've got a contact who can get us clean space, no questions." Vincent Kozlov shook his head. "South side is too hot right now, too much police activity. We should move east, slower to set up but safer long term." "East cuts into travel time," Logan Dunn said. "That affects profits." "So does getting raided," Tommy pointed out. They argued, back and forth. Dominic sat at the head of the table and let them. This was new, People actually debating instead of just nodding and following orders. It was messy, inefficient. It was better. After 20 minutes, they voted. East Side won, 7-4. Motion carries, Sarah said. Tommy, work up cost projections. Angela, find us backup options in case East Side falls through. Meeting adjourned. People filed out. Arya stayed in the corner, watching, taking notes. What do you think? Dominic asked her when the room was empty. I think it's chaos. It is, but it works. Sometimes. Dominic stood, stretched. Democracy's messy, but it keeps people honest. Hard to steal when everyone's watching. What about the old way, when you made decisions alone? The old way got me betrayed and almost killed. He walked to the window. This way, if someone has a problem with a decision, they say it, out loud, in front of everyone. No secrets, no hidden agendas. And if someone votes wrong, makes a bad call, then we fix it together. That's the point. Arya nodded slowly. I think I'm going to like it here. Don't get too comfortable. This could all fall apart tomorrow. Yeah, but it hasn't yet. That night, Dominic couldn't sleep. He lay in bed in his penthouse apartment, separate from the office, another security measure, and stared at the ceiling. His phone sat on the nightstand. Silent. No threats. No emergencies. No calls in the middle of the night warning him that everything was burning down. It was unsettling. He got up, made coffee, stood at the window and watched the city sleep. His mind wandered to Elena. He'd heard she was in Europe, Paris maybe, or London, living off whatever money she'd taken from Marcus, living quiet, smart. Part of him hoped she stayed there. The other part knew she'd eventually run out of money, get desperate, make a mistake. When that happened, someone would find her. Maybe one of his people. Maybe someone else. Either way, her story would end badly. He didn't feel good about it. But he didn't feel bad either. She'd made her choices. Now she'd live with them. His phone buzzed. Text from Father Raymond. You awake? Yeah. Meet me at St. Michael's. I want to show you something. Dominic almost said no. It was 2 a.m. He was tired. He had meetings in 6 hours. But Father Raymond didn't ask for things without reason. Give me 20 minutes. The cathedral was dark when Dominic arrived. Just a few candles burning near the altar. Father Raymond sat in the front pew, rosary in hand. You pray? Dominic asked, sitting beside him. Sometimes, when I remember how. Father Raymond smiled. Mostly, I just sit. Think. This place has good acoustics for thinking. What are we doing here? I wanted to talk to you, away from everyone else, away from the organization. Dominic waited. Father Raymond was quiet for a moment, then, You've changed these past few weeks. You're different. Different how? Softer, not weak, don't misunderstand me, but softer, more careful. You used to make decisions like you were invincible. Now you make them like you know you're not. I almost died. That changes perspective. It does, but it's more than that. Father Raymond set down his rosary. You're building something real, something that might actually outlast you, and I think that scares you. Dominic didn't answer. The old empire was about control, Father Raymond continued, about one man holding everything together through force and fear. But this new thing you're building, it's about people, about trust. And trust is terrifying because you can't control it. So what's your point? My point is that you need to decide what you want. Do you want an empire that dies when you die? Or do you want something that keeps going? Because those are two different things, and they require two different men. Which man am I? Father Raymond smiled. You're figuring that out. That's why you're here. That's why you let Arya back in. That's why you listen to Sarah and Tommy and the rest of us instead of just giving orders. You're trying to be better. And if I fail, then you fail. But at least you'll fail trying. Father Raymond stood. Come on. I want to show you something. He led Dominic down to the basement, through a narrow hallway, to a door Dominic had never noticed. What's this? Archives. Father Raymond unlocked the door. Inside was a small room filled with filing cabinets and boxes, old records, baptisms. marriages, funerals. He pulled out a file, opened it. David Hale, baptized here, married here, funeral service held here 10 years ago. Dominic went still. I remember him, sir, Father Raymond said. Good man, weak but good. He came to confession once, told me he'd stolen money from his employer, that he was scared, that he didn't know what to do. What did you tell him? I told him to return the money. Make it right. Face the consequences. Father Raymond closed the file. He didn't listen, and a week later, he was dead. Why are you telling me this? Because his daughter came here too, Aria. She sat in this church for hours after his funeral, crying, angry, planning revenge. Father Raymond looked at Dominic. And now she's working for you, the man who killed her father. Don't you think that's strange? Yeah, I do. She forgave you, not because you asked for it, not because you deserved it, but because she chose to, because she decided revenge wasn't worth what it would cost. Father Raymond put the file back. That's grace, Dominic, and grace is the only thing that breaks the cycle. They walked back upstairs, stood in the empty cathedral. I'm not asking you to be a saint, Father Raymond said. I'm asking you to recognize grace when you see it, and to give it back when you can. He left Dominic alone. Dominic sat in the front pew, looked at the altar, at the crosses, at the candles burning in the dark. Grace. He wasn't sure he believed in it, but Aria had given him a second chance. Sarah had trusted him when she didn't have to. Tommy had stayed loyal even when the smart move was to run. Maybe that was grace, or maybe it was just people making choices that didn't make sense. Either way, he'd take it. 2 months after his funeral, Dominic called another meeting. Not at the Gatsby Room, at a warehouse on the north side. Neutral ground, away from history. Everyone came. Sarah, Tommy, Father Raymond, the Dunn brothers, Angela, Vincent, Aria, others who'd earned their place in the new structure. I have an announcement, Dominic said when they were all assembled. I'm stepping back. The room went silent. Not stepping down, he clarified. Stepping back. I'm still part of this, still involved, but I'm not running it alone anymore. Sarah's taking over day-to-day operations. Tommy's handling finances. Father Raymond is overseeing disputes. The council makes major decisions. I'm just one vote. Why? Angela asked. Because the old way doesn't work. One man at the top means one point of failure, and I'm tired of being that point. Dominic looked around the room. This organization survives because of all of you, not me. So it's time the structure reflected that. And if we fail, Logan Dunn asked, then we fail together, but we won't, because we're better than the people who came before us. Vincent leaned back in his chair. This is very democratic, very American. I'm not sure I trust it. You don't have to trust it. You just have to trust us. Dominic met his eyes. Can you do that? Vincent thought about it, then nodded. Yes, I think I can. One by one, the others agreed. Some enthusiastically, some reluctantly, but they agreed. The meeting lasted 3 hours. They restructured everything, divided responsibilities, created oversight committees, built safeguards to prevent another Marcus. By the time they finished, the empire looked nothing like it had a year ago. It looked better. As people filed out, Aria approached Dominic. You're really doing this, giving up control. I'm sharing control. There's a difference. Most people can't do that. Let go. Yeah, well, most people didn't get betrayed by everyone they trusted. Dominic smiled. Besides, I'm not letting go. I'm just holding on differently. Aria studied him. You're going to be okay. You know that? Maybe. No, you are, because you learned something most people never do. What's that? That power isn't about control. It's about what you build. And what you're building here, she gestured around the warehouse. It's going to outlast you. She left before he could respond. Dominic stood alone in the empty warehouse and let her words sink in. She was right. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about the structure, the system. The idea that maybe you could build something in the underworld that didn't eat itself alive. It wouldn't be perfect. There'd be setbacks, betrayals, failures. But it would survive. And that was enough. 6 months later, Dominic got word that Marcus was dead. Overdose. Cheap motel room in Atlantic City. No note, no final words, just gone. Dominic didn't feel relief, didn't feel vindication, just a dull acknowledgement that the story had ended the way it always would have. He didn't attend the funeral, didn't send flowers, just let Marcus disappear the way he'd tried to make Dominic disappear. Elena surfaced a year later. London. She'd remarried. Some banker. Living quiet. Dominic got the report from his people and told them to stop watching. She wasn't a threat anymore. Just another person trying to outrun their past. The organization grew. Slowly. Carefully. Under Sarah's leadership, they expanded into legitimate businesses. Under Tommy's oversight, the finances stayed clean. Under Father Raymond's guidance, they avoided the worst excesses. Arya became head of security. She was ruthless, fair, impossible to fool. People respected her because she'd earned it. Dominic stayed involved, but from a distance. He voted on major decisions, offered advice when asked. But mostly he watched the thing he'd built become something bigger than himself. It wasn't the empire he'd imagined. It was better. 2 years after his resurrection, Dominic stood on the balcony of his penthouse and looked out at the city. The sun was setting. Gold light painting everything in warmth. His phone rang. Sarah. Yeah? We've got a problem. New crew moving in on the south side. They don't know the rules. Want to set up a meeting? What does the council say? Split vote. 3 want to negotiate. 3 want to push back hard. You're the tiebreaker. Dominic thought about it. 2 years ago, he would have made the decision in seconds. Would have trusted his gut and moved. Now he had to think about consequences. About systems. About the people depending on him to make the right call. Set up the meeting, he said, but bring muscle, just in case. Smart. I'll set it up for tomorrow. She hung up. Dominic stood on the balcony and let himself feel it. The weight. The responsibility. The knowledge that his choices affected hundreds of people. It was terrifying. It was exactly what he needed. Behind him, the door opened. Arya stepped out carrying 2 glasses of whiskey. She handed him one. Long day? She asked. Every day's long. Yeah, but you're still here. Still here. They stood in silence, watching the city breathe, watching the lights come on as darkness fell. You ever regret it? Arya asked. Coming back? Fighting for this? Dominic thought about it. About Elena and Marcus. About the betrayal. About the fury and pain and the moment he'd stood in the storm, wondering if it was worth surviving. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. Even though it cost you everything? It didn't cost me everything. It cost me the illusion of everything. There's a difference. He sipped his whiskey. The empire I had before, it was built on lies. This one's built on truth. That's worth something. Arya nodded. Yeah, it is. They stayed on the balcony until the stars came out. 2 people who'd lost everything and found something better in the wreckage. Below them, the city moved, lived, thrived. And somewhere in the darkness, a new empire was being born. Not perfect, not clean, but honest. And in a world built on lies, honesty was the most dangerous weapon of all. Dominic raised his glass to the city, to the empire, to the future. To second chances, he said. Arya clinked her glass against his. To second chances. They drank. The night stretched out ahead of them, full of possibility, full of danger, full of life. And for the first time in years, Dominic Varela felt something he'd thought was dead. Hope. Not the fragile kind that breaks when things go wrong, but the stubborn kind. The kind that survives betrayal and loss and everything the world throws at it. The kind that builds empires. The kind that lasts. He finished his whiskey, set the glass down, looked at Arya. Ready for tomorrow? She smiled. Always. Good. Because this is just the beginning. They walked back inside, the door closed behind them. The city kept moving. And in a penthouse high above the streets, 2 people who'd been enemies became allies, then friends, then something closer to family. Because that's what happens when you survive the worst, when you claw your way back from death, when you build something real out of the ashes. You find people who understand, and you hold on to them, no matter what. The empire was new, fragile, dangerous, but it was theirs. and they'd fight like hell to keep it together.